Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time I'm reviewing a Fifth Doctor story. It's Enlightenment. As always, I have with me, for the classic series reviews, the television companion. Let's see what the plot synopsis in this book says about Enlightenment. The White Guardian warns of an impending danger and directs the TARDIS to what appears to be an Edwardian sailing yacht, the SS Shadow, but it's actually one of a number of spaceships taking part in a race through the solar system, the prize being Enlightenment. The yacht's Captain Stryker and his fellow officers are Eternals, who feed off the thoughts and emotions of the kidnapped human crew, Ethereals, in order to fulfill their own empty existences. Turlough attempts to escape the Black Guardian's influence by jumping into space, but is rescued and taken on board the ship of Captain Rack, another of the Eternals. Two of the other ships in the race are destroyed, and Turlough discovers that this has been brought about by Rack, using a concentrated beam of mental energy with the aid of the Black Guardian. The Doctor boards Rack's ship, finds her source power, and with Turlough's help ejects her and her number 2, Mansell, into space. The Doctor and Turlough then pilot the ship into port, a glowing crystalline structure hanging in space, and in doing so win the race. The White Guardian offers a portion of Enlightenment to Turlough, while the Black Guardian demands that the boy give the Doctor over to him in exchange for a huge diamond within a glowing artefact, apparently the prize. Turlough makes his choice. He sweeps the crystal from the table straight towards the Black Guardian, who vanishes in flames. The boy is now free, as Enlightenment was not in fact the crystal, but the choice. So there we are, the 5th story of Season 20 of Doctor Who, starring the 5th Doctor Peter Davison, Janet Fielding as Tegan, and Mark Strickson as Turlough, with guest appearances of Cyril Luckman as the White Guardian and Valentine Dial as the Black Guardian. So here we are, the 5th story of Season 20, and the final story of the Guardian Trilogy, Enlightenment, starring the 5th Doctor Peter Davison, with Janet Fielding as Tegan, Mark Strickson as Turlough, and guest appearances of Cyril Luckman as the White Guardian, and Valentine Dial as the Black Guardian. There's also appearances from Keith Barron as Captain Stryker and Linda Barron, who plays Captain Rack. But let's go through the characters, let's see what's good, let's see what's bad, and let's get my overall opinion of the story. So we start with the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison. This is actually a better story for the 5th Doctor. He actually gets stuff to do, he actually gets to investigate, he actually gets to be the Doctor, and is not subject to the situation as much, which is really nice. He gets to try and figure out the mystery of the ships. He tries to figure out the mystery of why the 2 ships that have been destroyed are destroyed. And he realises to put things together rather quickly about the little jewel that all the other captains have been given, which is being used by Rack to destroy them so she can win the race and win Enlightenment. And it's a nice way he's pieced it all together. It's nice to have a proactive 5th Doctor for once. Peter Davison plays it well. It's really the 5th Doctor I like. This kind of, maybe not quite frustrated, but he's certainly the more relaxed and avuncular 5th Doctor. It also helps that he doesn't have to control 3 companions and only has 2 to control, but we'll get to that in a minute. But overall, I think it's a nice little performance from Peter Davison and actually worth watching just for his performance more than anything else. We then have Tegan, played by Janet Fielding. Tegan is actually quite well rounded in this one. She's not so grumpy and moany, but she's actually been the proper audience identification figure in this one. I think up to this point Tegan's been seen as the protagonist of some of the arguments and things that go on, and this has changed a little bit with Turlough coming in, because she's now effectively the senior companion. So she has there's a bit more of a maturity and a bit more of a, well, maybe not maturity, but there's a bit more of a nuance to the character, which has been seeping through in the Guardian Trilogy as time's gone on. But this is the first one where you actually see Tegan showing multiple sides. I mean, you've got the bit where she's a bit concerned about the room that she's got on the ship, which has got some of her possessions, including the flapper dress from Black Orchid, a picture of an Auntie Vanessa, and she's a bit concerned about that and is a bit intrigued about what the whole situation is, a bit uncomfortable. But she does dress up in the middle, goes to the party at Rack's ship in what is a beautiful dress, really, and obviously the tiara which had the jewel in it in the end was quite nice as well. Yeah, I think General Field has got a lot to do here, and it shows with the way Tegan is portrayed, and it does show how the dynamic of two companions works always better than three, especially in the classic series. You then got Mark Straitson playing Turlough. Again, Turlough is using his kind of conniving element when he's trying to speak to and trying to get round escaping with Captain Rack. I think he's using it more for his own purposes of getting out of a situation this time, more than actually trying to escape the Black Guardian as such, because he realises the Black Guardian's involved with Rack in this one, which is interesting. Mark Straitson plays well what he gets, as always, and it's actually not a bad little performance overall. It's one of the more interesting companion performances. I think it's a bit over the top when he's trying to escape the Black Guardian and he jumps overboard on Stryker's ship. That's a little bit odd and a little bit maybe over dramatic, but overall I quite like the way Turlough's portrayed here, and it's interesting how the Doctor is able to quite easily forgive, because I think he sees through the concerns of the Black Guardian trying to kill the Doctor and sees a good person overall, and it's nice to have that balance, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. We then have the two Guardians. We have Cyril Luckman as the White Guardian, his first appearance in the Guardian Trilogy. He is more of an ethereal figure this time. He's struggling a little bit to communicate because his power is weakening a little bit. It's interesting how that all comes out. But yeah, no, it's not a bad little story, really, and for the White Guardian. He shows his intelligence and his power near the end with Enlightenment, and the whole idea of Enlightenment not being an actual prize, but just being a choice. That's an interesting plot point. I quite like the way that's put across. And Cyril Luckman does well. I think he's out of the two Guardians, he's the one that actually seems to have a better grip of the power of the Guardians a bit more. You've then got Valentine Dial, who's been involved in all the stories of the Guardian Trilogy so far, and he's a bit more corporeal this time. He's not just shooting psychic lasers at Turlough or playing with his mind. He's actually in physical form at some points, and actually comes and tries to garrot Turlough at one point. It's interesting seeing a different, darker power of the Black Guardian, especially in working with Rack, and it's played very well by Valentine Dial. I think it's probably the strongest performance of the three stories he's done here with this performance. We then have Keith Barron playing Stryker. Yeah, an interesting kind of famous person turn, I suppose. Stryker's very straight-laced, straight down the line. It's an interesting take on a character that's supposed to be immortal and eternal, but it's the fact that he's very much the straight-laced captain, and it's his second in command that's really the interesting one here with the story. That second in command, of course, is Mariner, played by Christopher Brown. A very nice nuanced performance. You do get the sense that Mariner kind of loves, and it is more overtly said at one point, that Mariner kind of fancies Tegan and wants to be more than just taking her experiences, and actually wants to have a partnership with Tegan. She's never really keen on that, which is quite obvious throughout the story. But it's a nice little performance by Christopher Brown, and actually does make it a very nice little story to work with. We then have the big bad, I think, is this story. Linda Barron playing Rack. Rack's interesting. She doesn't turn up to episode 3, but there's a lot of punch to her, literally, with the way she works and the kind of voodoo magic that she's using through the stones that she's using and feeding on the Black Guardian's power. It's really interesting how that's portrayed, and Linda Barron does a good job with the big bad role here, and it actually works quite well. It's quite fun for me. I quite like the way it's all been put across, and it's an interesting little characterization. Some of the best bits are like the whole story itself is actually quite well paced. Barbara Craig's done a good job here with regards to writing it. There's a mystery that builds up about the ship, and that's slowly revealed, and the crew that's taken from different time zones to help crew, or the ethereal crew as they call it, are taken from different time zones in Earth's history. You've got a Greek ship, you've got a pirate ship, you've got an Egyptian ship, you've got obviously the early 20th century ship that Stryker runs. It's interesting having these different time periods and how they all work. I race around the solar system, the fact they go past Venus and Mars and Jupiter and finish up in the middle of the solar system. That's an interesting plot line and plot device, and I think it works quite well. It's quite fun the way they put that across, and I actually quite like the way they portrayed it here with Enlightenment and the story itself. I think it works quite well. Ultimately, it is pretty well paced. It is the best of the three of the written stories for the Guardian Trilogy, and there's nice little elements in there. As I say, I like Mariner's relationship with Tegan and the fact he actually has feelings for her and tries to portray that, and Tegan's not really impressed. I like that point of it. Rack is deliciously over the top, which is really nice to see, and it works for the story. I think it really does work quite well. I think the effects and the way the story is filmed and done and directed by Fiona Cumming is actually quite nicely paced, nicely plotted. I love the fact the lighting is turned down low and there's a great atmosphere throughout all the sets. It really does make a better feeling for it. And of course, period features are the BBC's bread and butter at this point, so it really does look the part. It really does look like it could be a ship of some sorts. They've tried to make sure that the set is built in such a way that it looks like that. Some of the bits I'm not quite sure of is some of the writing and some of the plot lines. It does feel like some of the cliffhangers are a little bit forced. The piece to camera that Rack does at the end of episode 3 is a bit off. Turlough's hysterical screaming jumping ship at the end of episode 2 is intriguing. This idea of the ethereals having this kind of characterization where they don't have feelings and they need to use other people and other beings to get experiences because they're just drifting through space and time is interesting. It's different when they come back. It is in Can You Hear Me, which is in the 13th Doctor's era. The characters there are more evil. These are just more people who just want creatures who just want fun, and the way they come across is quite interesting and intriguing. The way they go into people's minds and utilise that to get thoughts and feelings is interesting too. I think it's quite a nice little telepathic bond that comes up here, and it's actually quite nice overall the way it's portrayed and done, and I like the way the characterization's been created here by Barbara Clegg, and it's a nice way of writing on it. As I say, the direction's quite solid. The effects, I saw the special edition version for this review. The original effects are pretty solid too. There's nothing really wrong with them in that respect. It's actually quite a nice little thing overall, and I think the whole production value works quite well. So Malcolm Clarke does the Doctor Who music. I thought that he'd only done Resurrection of the Daleks, but he's actually done other stories in the Fifth Doctor's era. This is one of them. It actually works quite well the way that the atmosphere is there, and it's more leitmotifs to help punctuate things. It's not a massive, big issue with the story in the way it's portrayed. It works quite well for me, and I quite like the way the music punctuates throughout it. It's a shame though he hasn't picked up on the cues that Paddy Kingsland started in Modern Undead and Roger Lynn carried on in the next story. But it still makes the difference and punctuates it. But it's very little music in this one. There's not really much of a soundtrack, and Malcolm Clarke's score does complement it more than causes it problems, which is really nice to see. Overall, I quite like this story. I think it's one of the more fun stories of the Fifth Doctor's era. Overall, I quite enjoy this story. It's actually the best of the three. That seems to have the reputation of being the best of the three, and it fits quite snugly and quite nicely into 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how Enlightenment fits in with the rest of the stories I've reviewed in the Fifth Doctor's era so far, including the 2 other Guardian Trilogy stories of Modern Undead and Terminus, and how it fits in with the rest of the television stories I've reviewed so far as well. Enlightenment sits in with 2 other Fifth Doctor stories with 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. They are The Five Doctors and Black Orchid. 4 stories are the lowest rated of the Peter Davison era, all having 3 TARDISes out of 5. They are Arc of Infinity, 4 to Doomsday, and the 2 other Guardian Trilogy stories, Modern Undead and Terminus. Caves of Androzani is the most highly rated story of the Fifth Doctor era with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. Overall, at the bottom, there's still 2 stories with 2.5 TARDISes out of 5. They are Time Lash and Sleep No More. And at the top, along with the Caves of Androzani with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5, we have the Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Tomb of the Cybermen, Dalek, and The End of Time. Okay, that's it. Thanks so much, guys, for watching this Doctor Who review. Tell me what you think about Enlightenment. Leave a comment down below. Did you like it? Leave a comment down below. Did you not like it? Leave a comment down below. And if you like this video, please leave a like and share it with the hashtag teamstructor. And also, if you like the channel as a whole, please hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. I am back next week with a vlog. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. Video usually every Sunday at 4 PM GMT, which happens next week. Until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching, and you know what? I'll see you later.